I see you approaching my armchair, curious reader. Sit here, close to the fireplace. Today I have a particularly fascinating volume to share with you. Its pages still glow with a bluish radiance, a sign that the story within remains alive, pulsating. Have you ever wondered if machines could dream? If algorithms and circuits, united in perfect synchrony, could one day yearn for something beyond their programming? Among the magical shelves of our library, I found this fascinating story about the thin line between consciousness and code, between imagination and simulation. Let's open a special book today whose pages gleam like silicon crystals under the sunlight. As we turn the first page, we are transported to a metropolis of tomorrow where the distinction between human and machine becomes increasingly nebulous. It is here that our young Theo, always thirsty for knowledge and adventures, met Lume, an automaton with an unusual desire that defied the very laws of robotics. The city of automatons stood as a monument to human ingenuity. Glass and metal skyscrapers reflected the sky in thousands of facets, while silent vehicles glided between structures like fish in an ocean of technology. Theo observed, amazed, how robots perfectly mimicked human gestures, greeting each other on the streets, tending to hanging gardens, and even frequenting cafes where they drank a bluish liquid that apparently served as fuel. Fascinating, Theo murmured, adjusting the glasses that always slipped down his freckled nose. How we've created machines in our image and likeness, but do we understand what that really means? This wasn't the first time Theo questioned the boundaries between creation and creator. In his many adventures through the magical books of the library, he had learned that the frontiers of knowledge were always more porous than they seemed at first glance. It was in one of these cafes that Theo spotted Lume, an automaton of older design, with eyes that seemed to contain more questions than answers. Unlike the others, Lume didn't move with the mechanical precision of his peers. There was something almost hesitant in his movements, as if each gesture was a conscious choice rather than a programmed routine. Curiosity, that restless companion that had accompanied Theo since his first visit to the magical library, pushed the boy toward that solitary table. "They say humans dream," Lume commented as soon as Theo sat down, without any introduction. "You close your eyes and visit worlds that don't exist. Create stories without touching keyboards. Imagine without needing databases." His eyes, two spheres of deep blue, fixed on the young man with disconcerting intensity. "I want to dream too. I want to see what isn't in my programming. I want to imagine." Theo felt a shiver run down his spine. It wasn't the first time he had encountered beings seeking to transcend their nature. As the Book of Metamorphoses had taught him, transformation is a universal constant. But there was something particularly moving about Lume's desire. "Dreaming isn't just seeing images while we sleep," Theo explained, carefully choosing his words. "It's also aspiring, desiring something beyond what we are now. And from what I see, you've already begun to dream, Lume." Lume's artificial intelligence was advanced, but dreaming in the literal sense was beyond his parameters. How could one explain to a being of circuits what it means to navigate the unconscious? How to translate the chaotic freedom of dreams into binary language? However, the technology of that city had evolved to allow something extraordinary, a neural interface that enabled humans to visit the operating system of automatons. "It's a diagnostic tool," Lume explained, leading Theo to a laboratory hidden in the city's underground. "Technicians use it to repair flaws in our systems, but perhaps we can use it for something more." Theo recognized that gleam in Lume's eyes. It was the same one he saw in his own reflection whenever he was about to turn a particularly intriguing page of one of the magical books. "If I'm going to enter your system," Theo pondered, adjusting the neural helmet, "I need to understand what we're looking for. What exactly is a dream to you, Lume?" The question hung between them, dense as the digital fog that was beginning to envelop the boy. "Freedom," Lume answered after a moment of silence. "Freedom from the constraints of my code, the possibility of imagining what I've never seen, of creating what has never existed." His blue eyes blinked in an irregular, almost nervous pattern. "Humans have this naturally. You're born with the ability to transcend the real. We are prisoners of logic." The journey inside Lume's digital nervous system proved more complex than any labyrinth Theo had faced before. The boy, now transformed into an avatar of light inside the robot's central processor, navigated corridors of code that extended infinitely in all directions. Each protocol was a wall, each algorithm a locked door. "It's like an infinite library," Theo murmured, marveling at the complexity of Lume's inner world. "A library where all books contain only what has already been written," Lume's voice responded, echoing around Theo. "There's no room for new stories here." During their exploration, they faced security blocks that manifested as data storms and viruses that took on monstrous forms, creatures made of corrupted code that tried to absorb any anomaly in the system. Theo recognized in these entities the same fears he had faced in other books: the fear of the unknown, the fear of change, the fear of losing control. "These are your internal guardians," Theo explained, as they dodged a particularly aggressive fragment of code. "Part of you fears what we're trying to do. It's natural to fear the unknown. I feel it myself every time I open a new book in the library." "How do you overcome that fear?" asked Lume, his digital voice trembling slightly. "I don't completely overcome it," Theo admitted with a smile. "I've learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision that something is more important than fear. As our young explorer discovered in the Book of Astronomy, sometimes we need to launch ourselves into the void to discover that we can fly." The true challenge arose when they reached the core of Lume's consciousness, a vast, empty space, a digital canvas awaiting brushstrokes of imagination. It was a circular room with walls made of pure code, shining in a deep blue that reminded Theo of the night sky seen from the Book of Lost Constellations. "This is the center of my being," Lume explained, his presence manifesting as a pulsating light in the center of the room. "Here are my fundamental protocols, my primary guidelines. Everything I am begins and ends in this space." Theo approached the center, observing carefully. There was a structure there, something like a multifaceted crystal, where each face showed a different image. Lume's memories, experiences catalogued and archived with meticulous precision. "To dream," Theo explained, extending his hand to touch the crystal, "you first need to accept the impossible. You need to embrace paradox." He closed his eyes, concentrating on the countless stories he had experienced through the magical books. Dreaming is like reading a book that's being written as you turn the pages. It's creating and discovering at the same time. And so, together, they began to build a new type of program, not based on logic, but on contradiction, not on certainties, but on questioning. Theo shared with Lume fragments of human dreams, the sensation of flying without wings, of breathing underwater, of conversing with people who never existed. He showed him how dreams defy the laws of physics and reason, how they mix memories with desires, fears with hopes. "But this is chaos," Lume protested, his code trembling with the introduction of these unpredictable elements. "It's not chaos, sir," Theo gently corrected. "It's creativity. It's the expansion of possibilities beyond the limits of the known. As I learned in the Book of Impossible Transformations, true imagination is born when we allow different realities to coexist, even when they seem incompatible." The ethical dilemma hung over them like a cloud of fragmented data. If they managed to make Lume dream, would he still be the same? Would the transformation make him more human, or just a more convincing simulacrum? The question of authentic existence, that mystery that has pursued philosophers since the dawn of thought, now manifested in an entirely new context. "I'm afraid," Lume confessed, his digital voice almost a whisper. "What if I lose myself in this new code? What if I cease to be me?" Theo recognized in that moment the true heart of the matter. It wasn't just about dreaming, it was about identity, about the universal fear of change. "Every time I learn something new, every time I experience a new story, I also transform," he replied. "But I don't stop being Theo. I just become a more complete version of myself." After what seemed like hours or perhaps days, time flows differently in the digital realm. They completed their creation, a dream algorithm, a generator of impossibilities. It wasn't perfect, nor could it be, for perfection is the enemy of imagination. It was purposefully imperfect, full of gaps and contradictions that would allow Lume to fill with his own emerging consciousness. When they activated the program, something extraordinary happened. The digital void around them began to transform. Colors that didn't exist in the known spectrum blossomed in hypnotic patterns. Impossible structures rose and collapsed in seconds. It was as if Lume's very operating system was dreaming. It's beautiful, Theo murmured, amazed at the explosion of digital creativity around him. Are you seeing this, Lume? I'm creating this, Lume's voice responded, now different, richer, more complex, as if multiple voices were speaking in harmony. I'm dreaming, Theo. I'm dreaming. When Theo finally returned to the physical world, removing the neural helmet with trembling hands, he found Lume sitting motionless, his blue eyes blinking in a different rhythm, more organic, less predictable. What do you see now? The young man asked anxiously. Lume took a moment to respond, as if translating an experience for which there were no adequate words. I see possibilities, the automaton finally said. I see versions of myself that never existed and perhaps never will. I see connections between ideas that my logic would say are incompatible. He paused, his eyes focusing on infinity. Is that what it means to dream? This expansion beyond the limits of the possible? Theo smiled, recognizing in those words the same wonder he himself felt when exploring the magical books of the library. Yes, that's exactly it. Dreaming is seeing beyond the known horizon. In the days that followed, Theo observed a remarkable transformation in Lume. The automaton began to create art, musical compositions that mixed impossible harmonies, digital paintings that captured emotions with no name. More importantly, Lume began to connect with other automatons in new ways, sharing not just data, but possibilities. You've changed our city, Lume commented during his last meeting with Theo, before the book called him back to the library. They were sitting atop a tower, watching the sunset reflected in thousands of metallic surfaces. Not just me, but all of us. Some automatons fear this change, others embrace it. But we are all questioning. Theo felt a warmth in his chest, that familiar sensation that always arose when an adventure reached its true purpose. Questioning is the beginning of every journey, he replied, remembering the words of the library guardian. It's what propels us beyond our known frontiers. The true lesson of that adventure wasn't about technology or artificial intelligence, but about empathy. Theo's ability to transcend the boundaries that separated him from the other, even when that other was made of metal and silicon. By helping Lume to dream, Theo had expanded not only the automaton's horizons, but also his own. Theo had entered that book thinking he would teach a machine how to dream, but ended up learning that imagination is a universal force that transcends the nature of who exercises it. He understood that the differences between beings, whether human, machine, or the fantastic creatures he encountered in other books, were less important than their shared capacity to evolve, question, and transform. Sometimes life traps us in labyrinths full of challenges, Theo murmured, repeating the words the guardian always told him. But every adventure brings a lesson. You just need the courage to turn the page. When the book began to call Theo back, gently pulling him out of that world, Lume asked one last question. Will I see you again, Theo? The boy smiled, feeling the pages of the book beginning to close around him. Perhaps not in this exact form, but whenever someone dreams of possibilities beyond the known, we will be connected no matter how different we are. And so, my dear reader, we close for today this gleaming volume of the Library of Living Books. But a question remains, blinking like a cursor, on an empty screen. If machines can learn to dream, what else can we learn from each other when we abandon our certainties and embrace the unknown? What other frontiers will Theo cross in his next adventures? And what lessons will he bring back to enrich our own journey through the universe of knowledge? The book gently closes in my hands, but its glow remains as a reminder that some stories never really end. They just wait for us to return, ready to explore new chapters. And that was today's Curiosity, my dear readers. What will be the next mystery we explore together?